I have this strange ability to hear what people who don't love me are really thinking. Because of this, I can easily tell when someone's kindness isn't genuine. It helps me stay away from fake friends and not be affected by someone I might have liked confessing their feelings. Even when I'm buying fruit, I can hear what the sellers are thinking to pick the best ones. Every thought they have is clear to me. To avoid getting overwhelmed by all the voices, I usually don't make eye contact with strangers. But when I first met Lily, everything went quiet, and I could only hear our conversation. "Hello, may I get to know you?" There was no inner voice. When we looked at each other, I couldn't read any of her thoughts. "Hello?" While Lily was getting to know me, the thoughts I heard from her were simple and honest. I believed she loved me. So we fell in love, dated, and eventually talked about getting married. For 2 whole years, I never heard her inner thoughts. But on the night before our wedding, I suddenly started hearing Lily's inner voice. Because of the wedding, Lily had been very busy. She comes from a wealthy family and has already successfully taken over her parents' business, managing the Liu family's finance company on her own. With all the wedding plans, especially in the last 2 months, we hardly had any time together. I have my own job, and I respect Lily's work. So during this time, we didn't see each other much. But today, while we were picking out our wedding outfits, I thought this rare time together would bring us closer, and I felt happy. When I arrived at the studio on time, she was already there, trying on shoes. After talking briefly with the staff, she picked up her phone and walked out while talking, her voice sounding reassuring. I understood she was busy. Running a company isn't easy, especially when the Liu family has more than one person who could take over. We looked at each other, understanding. Then, all of a sudden, I heard Lily's inner voice. "Sam, if you're planning to stop the wedding tomorrow, you should wear sneakers so you can run away easier." "Sam, stop the wedding?" I was shocked and stared at her lips, making sure it was really her inner voice. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. Even though it was a very hot summer day outside, I suddenly felt cold all over and couldn't move. I could hear her inner voice now, and what it meant was very clear. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a staff member nearby following her orders, putting a pair of light sneakers into the wedding outfit bag. Lily nodded at me and lifted her leg like she was about to leave. That was our unspoken agreement. She must have had something important to do. But the words I had just heard don't lie. I've never misunderstood them. My body almost moved on its own, and in disbelief I quickly caught up and called out, "Lily!" I really wanted to hear more of her inner voice, to know exactly what the woman who was supposed to be my wife was thinking. Why, on the night before our wedding, had she suddenly changed her mind? My call made Lily stop for just a moment. She turned around quickly, gave a couple of short explanations, and then told the driver to go faster, and drove off. "Sorry, there's an urgent matter with a client. I need to rush over." She was lying. What she was really thinking was, from the sound of his voice, it's obvious Sam is angry. If I don't calm him down, he'll stop me from coming home tonight. I've never been one to worry too much about my inner feelings. Instead of thinking too much, I decided to do something. I quickly found a reason to talk to Lily's secretary privately, using my ability to hear his thoughts to get more information. His name was Ken. He was Lily's true love. Ken was the son of the Ito family who wasn't officially recognized, which left him in a difficult position. Unfortunately, the older members of the Liu family liked to interfere with people's relationships. Ken, too proud to handle the embarrassment, left Lily and disappeared without a trace. In the first place, Lily's love at first sight for me was only because I looked a little like Ken. Now that the real one had returned, she clearly didn't need me as a replacement anymore. Also, Ken's return happened at the same time as the last 2 months when Lily had been incredibly busy. Everything made sense. This story made me shake my head and smile in amusement. I never thought something so cliché like a substitute romance would happen to me. Ken planned to stop the wedding to show he still wanted Lily, and Lily needed this wedding to show Ken how much she loved him, to calm him down, and to force the Liu family to accept him. And I, along with this carefully planned wedding, turned out to be just a tool in their complicated plan. This world is just like a cheesy romance novel. To be honest, it was so ridiculous that I couldn't help but swear. That night, the lights in my house were still on. Even though the wedding was planned for the next day, I was busy packing my bags and didn't have a moment to rest. 2 hours earlier, I had already booked a first-class ticket for a flight overseas. Since everything had gone crazy, I might as well join in. If Lily can have her wedding taken over by Ken, then I can definitely disappear and avoid the wedding. Luckily, my family had been living overseas for a long time, so this wedding didn't involve a lot of distant relatives and friends. Only my close friends from back home were invited. We had originally planned that since our parents had already met at the engagement, having a second ceremony abroad would make it easier for our guests who might not speak the language. In the end, this made it very easy for me to skip out. I briefly told my childhood friend Ben about my plan. He silently took the packing box from my hand, his face serious. Unable to hear his inner thoughts and noticing his strange reaction, I had to ask out loud, "Ben, are you going to stop me?" Ben rolled his eyes and said irritably, "You idiot, I got you a strong bag. It's really tough." I thought to myself, damn, I almost forgot that Ben's family is in the fertilizer business. On the wedding day, wearing our formal suits, Lily and I greeted the guests who had traveled from far away. This time, however, Lily's inner voice was so loud it almost gave me a headache. "Has Ken arrived? I can finally be with Ken. 3 years. I've waited 3 years for Ken Ito. At last, I'm going to become Mrs. Ito. With this wedding interruption, Ken will believe how much I love him, right?" I shivered and frowned at Lily several times as her inner thoughts echoed in my ears. Yet on the outside, she remained as gentle and calm as ever, expressing concern for me. "Sam, you don't look so good. Why don't you go to the lounge to rest? I'll take care of the guests outside. Join the ceremony when it's time." That was fine with me. In fact, it was about time I found a reason to leave. I agreed, and just as I was about to change out of my suit, I happened to run into Ken by the door. Because we looked similar, and because of my ability, I recognized him almost immediately. I grabbed Ben by the sleeve. He was clearly ready to confront Lily, and pretended I didn't know, saying, "You're one of my beloved's friends, aren't you? Get inside quickly, our wedding starts in a few hours." Ken's smile suddenly disappeared, like he was annoyed by my friendly way of talking about Lily. His voice then turned sarcastic. "Mr. Wang, I'm sorry, but today our outfits are too similar. If someone who doesn't know saw this, might they think I'm the groom?" At that very moment, Ken's confident inner voice echoed in my ears. "Laugh all you want. In 3 hours, your groom will be leaving the wedding for me. Will you still be laughing then?" I kept smiling and shook my head dismissively. "Aren't all suits the same?" As I waved a waiter over to take him inside, I heard his inner voice again. "Idiot. I've already made it clear. I hope you realize I'm here to cause trouble." Just after we walked past each other, Ben couldn't help but mutter, "Look at that arrogant look on his face. I just can't stand it." I agreed. He's treating me like a joke. After all, Lily was ready to have her wedding taken over by him. In the end, he'll not only get the title of a lover finally reunited with his beloved, but also force the Liu family to accept his true identity right in front of my eyes. The wedding venue wasn't far from the airport, and as I sat in the departure lounge, the ceremony hadn't even started. I stared at the time on my phone, eagerly waiting for this ridiculous show to begin. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The phone vibrated non-stop as Ben excitedly flooded my messages with live updates. "Sam, they really did it. They really interrupted the wedding. Damn, cheating and yet acting like Cinderella and her prince absolutely shameless." With only 5 minutes until the ceremony officially began, Ben sent me a video of the wedding in progress. According to the schedule, after I had gone on stage and the host had told a sappy, overly sentimental love story, the bride was supposed to make her entrance. But to help Ken interrupt the wedding, Lily had already changed the program with me. She would go on stage first, and I would follow. She planned to force Ken to make his move at this important moment, not knowing that it was exactly what I wanted. Ken deliberately wore the same formal suit as the groom and quickly rushed onto the stage, taking the microphone from the host. Despite the murmurs from the audience, he boldly declared his love, his dramatic display bringing tears to Lily's eyes. "Lily, will you come with me?" The guests erupted in an uproar. Taking the bride away on the wedding day was definitely a blatant wedding interruption. What was most shocking was that Lily, with a look of deep emotion, nodded in agreement, walked to Ken's side, held his hand, and leaned on his shoulder like a little bird. "I do." Ken's huge ego was completely satisfied. He even had the nerve to give a speech to the groom, separated from him by a large door, basically saying, "I know you like Lily, but Lily's true love is me. I hope you'll step aside for us." In the video, Lily was wearing a simple wedding dress that would be easy to run in, paired with sneakers that looked completely out of place with her outfit. Meanwhile, Ken, holding the microphone, couldn't hide the smug satisfaction on his face. Ken was undoubtedly eager to see my sad expression, and had even practiced in his mind exactly what he'd say to comfort me. "I hope, Mr. Wang, that you'll help our love story come true." "Mr. Wang." At that moment, the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. After all, without the person who was supposed to be embarrassed being there, this whole thing had become nothing more than a silly show. "Mr. Wang? Mr. Wang?" Ken shouted repeatedly with no response, until the event coordinator swung open a large door. Behind it, there was no one. Only the casually thrown-away boutonniere, a sign of the groom's mysterious absence. The crowd started talking loudly, and someone shouted, "Damn, has the groom just skipped the wedding?" In the quiet waiting lounge, I suddenly burst out laughing. If that's what was meant to happen, then so be it. After all, many of the guests are people I know. If I leave the wedding and leave them hanging, that's on me. Might as well give them a free show of this ridiculousness. I couldn't help but shake my head and laugh. Just then, the big screen flashed a block of text and an image in bold red, size 2, saying, "Wedding escape statement. Due to Lily's affair with that other man, Ken, I have decided to skip the wedding. Consider it a treat for your amusement. And I hope that from now on you'll stay locked down and never go out causing trouble for anyone else." Below the text, recent intimate photos of Lily and Ken were thoughtfully attached. Buzz Ben sent me a message. "Mission accomplished." After seeing that, I also posted the same statement on social media, this being the final message from my account. The people at the wedding went into an uproar. Who now has time to make fun of me? The even bigger joke was right in front of them. Aren't Lily and Ken standing on stage, hand in hand? With the groom missing, who would care whether Lily and Ken run away or not? Ken's earlier, self-satisfied outpouring of love on stage, compared to the glaring red "cheating" on the big screen, only made him look more ridiculous. What love story? It's nothing but a flimsy excuse for cheating and betrayal. Ben, completely excited by the spectacle, sent me another video 2 minutes later. In it, no one paid any attention to the two idiots standing dumbfounded on stage, while the crowd frantically searched for my whereabouts. "Where's Sam? Where's Mr. Wang? Where's the groom? His phone isn't working. Has anyone tried checking the lounge? Check the changing room, the top floor, everywhere. Why is everyone just standing around? Get moving, get moving." Even the always serious Liu family parents hastily got up, telling the staff to find me, and soon the guests were all on the move. No one cared about the two stranded on stage. Even the host was called off. Lily and Ken stood there awkwardly, looking at each other in confusion, like monkeys forced to perform in public, completely lost. What's even funnier is that the audience was busy searching for me, the missing groom, without a care in the world for whether Lily and Ken would make a run for it. The romantic, exciting wedding escape scene that they had imagined was thrown into utter chaos by my sudden disappearance, like a bunch of old people rushing for free eggs at the supermarket door. The two of them just stood there on stage. With this wedding, whether they run away or not makes no difference. If they run, no one will care. If they don't, no one will care either. Time was almost up, so I used another social media account to send Ben a message that I was about to board, and I briefly told my parents about the situation, warning them not to give out any of my personal information. I then put my phone on airplane mode. Meanwhile, Ben settled comfortably in first class, enjoying over a dozen hours of flight. No sooner had I landed than Ben's messages began pouring in frantically. It looked like what happened after this affair was turning out to be wildly entertaining. In fact, barely after my first reply, Ben couldn't hold back and immediately sent me a voice message. "Ha ha ha ha, Sam. That move of yours was just too ruthless. You have no idea. Over here in City A, everything's in chaos. It wasn't just the relatives and friends from the Liu family, many of whom are important people. Since you skipped the wedding, they are in complete chaos over there. Those two idiots stood on stage for a full 10 minutes without anyone doing anything. And in the end, they left on their own. It was so embarrassing you could practically dig a swimming pool with your toes." Check the trending topics now. That video is at the top. People online are calling those two the reversed groom and reversed bride. And those bastards even chased you all the way to your villa. They were so furious, stomping at the door. They rang your doorbell like it was a telegraph. Beep, beep, beep. I was just about to leave when she chased after me, still having the nerve to ask where you were. I told her you'd gone abroad and nothing more. It had me in stitches. Don't even mention that you run fast in sneakers. Just from the sound of Ben's uncontrollable laughter, I could tell just how much Lily was being tormented by the whole affair. The wedding wasn't even successfully interrupted. Her disgrace was entirely her own doing. Everyone was laughing at her, yet she was the one who had planned it all. I wasn't really surprised by Lily's reaction. She dared to act that way because she was convinced that to protect the reputation of both the Liu and the Wang families, I wouldn't let things go any further. In the end, having been the subject of a wedding interruption, I could only swallow my bitter defeat in silence. After all, with the Wang family's assets overseas, the Liu family wouldn't be too badly affected. Besides, it gave me the chance to force the Liu family parents to finally accept Ken as their son-in-law. With things having gone so far, not accepting him in front of so many guests would simply be too shameful. But Lily never expected that I would skip the wedding. I completely exposed their plan and showed it directly to her and Ken, utterly disgusted with them. Let them be. Love is meant to be enjoyed, but once it comes to marriage, it turns into just enduring. After all, the life of Cinderella and her prince isn't just about the wedding day. What follows is the daily routine of endless chores and ordinariness. When you're in a dead-end situation, it's best to turn back in time. Avoiding an unhappy marriage, I was ready to celebrate. My parents had settled abroad years ago, where dating is refreshingly open and free-spirited. Moreover, neither Lily nor I had even legally registered our marriage. We weren't even husband and wife. So when I announced my return, my parents responded immediately. In fact, as soon as I got off the plane, someone was already arranged to pick me up. As I got into the car, Ben was still excitedly recounting the latest developments. The wedding eventually died down. After the guests left in small groups, only a few staff members remained. Since our families are on good terms with the Lius, some stayed behind to calm down an extremely upset Mrs. Liu. Mrs. Liu was so furious that she even slapped Lily. Frankly, she deserved it. Who doesn't know that you helped her climb the social ladder for Lily's sake, and that Ken, an illegitimate child, pulled off this shameless wedding interruption as a way to repay kindness with ingratitude? The Liu family themselves have lost face. Old Mr. Liu didn't even look at Ken. He just left immediately. Only Ken remained, awkwardly fumbling as if he didn't know what to do with his hands. When I was leaving, I even saw Ken, red-eyed, clinging to Lily as they tried to keep the wedding going. I bet he felt that his own reputation was utterly ruined. I scoffed. Those who insult others often end up being insulted themselves. I'll be waiting for them to actually have a wedding someday. If they do, I promise I'll sincerely congratulate them. I believe Lily will understand that sooner rather than later. I met Lily at a charity event. Although the Wang family's assets had already been moved overseas, both my parents and I are from City A. And with my elderly parents, long international flights can be quite tiring. That time when I returned, it was partly for business, partly to reconnect with my roots. I never expected to meet the girl who thought of herself as my destined partner. Back then, Lily called out to me while holding a wine glass. Her smile was radiant, and every graceful movement showed elegance. Because of my ability, I usually avoided starting conversations in such public places unless absolutely necessary. The noise of high society is just too overwhelming. When Lily stopped me, the annoyance on my face was still visible. Yet, strangely enough, I couldn't hear any inner thoughts from her. Perhaps because it was too quiet, I gradually found the patience to start talking with her. Later, when she confessed her feelings, she became so shy that she didn't know what to do with her hands. The one holding the rose trembled slightly as she said, "Sam, we will be together forever." We looked into each other's eyes, but I couldn't read any inner thoughts from her. So I nodded, trusting Lily's promise and agreeing to stay in the country to marry her. I never doubted that promise in that moment, but promises only hold true when love is genuine. In my eyes, the love story between Ken and Lily was nothing more than a tale of youthful, unrequited love. Ken might not be as perfect as Lily imagines, and Lily might not love Ken as deeply as she believes. After all, love is often most moving when it is unfulfilled. Half a month later, just after finishing Professor Parsons' design class, I received a call from Ben. "Didn't you get that wedding invitation from those bastards a few days ago? When I got there today, I thought some village was hosting a big feast. It wasn't nearly as lively as the time I went north for that pork stew." Ben, clearly a gossip reporter on the front lines, rambled on about that dramatic wedding. Old Mr. Liu didn't show up at all, and hardly anyone attended. This wedding can't compare to yours back in the day. The ceremony was held in a smaller hall, and only Mrs. Liu showed up, looking angry as she coldly finished her tea with the bride and groom. Forget about giving out red envelopes. She didn't even properly address her son-in-law, still calling him Mr. Ito. During the speeches on stage, they even had him scold Mr. Ito to behave. Told him to be well-mannered and know decency and shame. Ha ha ha. You should hear how the older generation, with all their cultured flair, can really tear someone down. Ken got so angry he ended up throwing Lily's bouquet, which forced her to try and calm both her mother and her husband. I nearly laughed myself sick. Honestly, that was hardly surprising. Given Mrs. Liu's personality, not holding the wedding would have been her usual style. But she couldn't resist Ken whispering sweet nothings into her daughter's ear, so she had no choice but to attend while keeping her anger in check. Yet Ken, who isn't even married yet, managed to offend his mother-in-law. Can he really expect any good days ahead? I also heard Ken's been putting his friends into Lily's company lately. He's enjoying himself. Once married, even the Ito family accepted him, and his own business is booming. Talk about having a big tree to lean on. I still remember how hard you worked to get resources for Lily, and now Ken is getting all the benefits. It makes me so jealous. I kept looking through project files while chatting with Ben on speakerphone. I haven't lost out either. I made quite a bit of money in all this. But Lily's life isn't exactly easy either. She might have control of the operations, but her father still makes the real decisions. They can't have the Liu group end up taking the Ito name, can they? Besides, the Liu family isn't just one young person. It's hard to say for sure, but I know how driven Lily is when it comes to her career. The company isn't run only by her, so I suspect Ken is playing the classic act first, explain later card. Thanks to that wedding, our business partners have heard about the feud between Lily and me, and have let slip a few things. For instance, the Liu family even promoted Lily's cousin, clearly increasing the pressure. Between love and business, I figure Lily is in a real bind. Ben clearly wasn't too happy with my comments. "What do you mean by that? Have you gone abroad to become a monk?" Are you out there hitting your prayer beads all over your face, suddenly becoming soft-hearted? Now you feel sorry for her suffering? So is your next move going to be to send her some warmth? I raised my eyebrows with a wry smile. No warm feelings here. I was thinking maybe I can make some money from this opportunity. Haha, I always thought you were a lovesick fool. Turns out you're a capitalist. But I never expected that 2 months later I'd receive a call from Lily. Sam? After all this time, hearing her voice suddenly sent a shiver down my spine. Lily, Miss Miller? No wonder the professor never bothered to give me the client's Chinese name, always saying it was just an old acquaintance. So it's you. As for Lily managing to find me, my reaction was surprisingly indifferent. After all, I'm abroad, not at a funeral. The business world isn't that big, and there are no real barriers. If Lily wants to get in touch, it's only a minor inconvenience. Sam, Her hesitant, stuttering tone annoyed me, and I inwardly rolled my eyes. What are you going on about? I've got no lingering feelings to rekindle with a cheating ex. If I had to curse her ancestors for 18 generations, that'd already be more than generous. I'm only greeting you out of politeness since you're the client. I cut her off coolly. If there's nothing else, I'd better go and introduce this project to Mr. Liu. Clearly still caught up in her own emotions, Lily tried to bring up the past. Sam, I'm truly sorry about everything back then. I know I hurt you. So much so that you ran off, skipped the wedding, and fled abroad. I'm sorry, I really owe you an apology. I fell silent for a moment and sighed. Lily, have you gotten what you wanted? A long silence stretched over the line, and then her voice came back, tired. I don't know. Ken isn't the same as he used to be. He's changed so much that I'm starting to wonder if he's even the Ken I once loved. Sorry, I know I shouldn't be disturbing your life, but I just felt like talking. Tonight I attended a cocktail party and suddenly remembered the days when we used to work together. I snorted dismissively, not wanting to continue what had been a relatively civil conversation. If Mrs. Ito finds out that you and I are still in touch, it won't be proper. Lisa, come over here. Thanks for helping me introduce this project to Mr. Liu. I've got other matters to attend to, excuse me. No matter how exciting a romance once was, over time it all becomes dull. The pearl powder you once disliked turns out, once lost, to be an invaluable glowing gem. No matter how much one is loved, one always yearns for the love that was never attained. Regarding Lily's confession, all I could think was, serves her right. I handed all follow-up work on the project over to my assistant, Lisa. Occasionally, if something was unclear, I'd offer guidance, but I made every effort to avoid direct contact with Lily. I knew exactly what she was planning. But when it comes to betrayal, once you've given someone a first chance, there's no room for a second. Lisa went back to the country on my behalf and successfully secured the project. Along with it, she brought another piece of news. Miss Liu asked me to tell you that she's divorced. When Ken began putting his friends into the company, I already had a vague feeling something was wrong. I just never expected it to happen so soon. Even when I messaged Ben, he was surprised. I only just heard about it too. How come your news is so fast? I smirked. She reconnected with me a while back because of the project. She specifically had my assistant tell me this. Ben clicked his tongue a couple of times before continuing. Everyone can see her true intentions, but how is it that this guy is so relentless? Does he really think you're just his backup? Disgusting. Do you know why they got divorced? Ken had Lily completely fooled. He was already married overseas to a rich foreign woman and only came back after losing a lawsuit against his stepson. When Aunt Lou found out, she was so furious her hands were shaking, and without a word, she slapped a photo of Lily right onto her face. You should have seen it. Lily's face turned so red you could fry an egg on it. After getting married, his shady behavior didn't stop, and his relationship with Lily steadily got worse. Now that everything's come to light, Lily had someone write up the divorce papers the very next day. And now it's over so decisively. I remember how back then, Lily was even willing to give up her entire fortune just to be with him. It's only been a year since they married, and now they're divorced. Thinking back on her former attitude, she must now think she was utterly foolish. I suddenly recalled when Lily had mentioned to me that Ken had changed. It was all just ridiculously funny. Ken perhaps hasn't changed at all. It's just that he no longer meets Lily's expectations. Once the excitement fades, true feelings gradually appear. Apart from our business dealings, Lily and I have lost all contact. I even deliberately ignore her emails and friend requests. She's good at falling in love with an idealized version of someone. Once it was Ken, and now it's mostly me. Let her be. I've built a whole new life for myself. As for Lily, to me she's nothing more than an old, unimportant memory. It wasn't until Ben was getting married that, after many years, I returned to City A. Accompanying me was my daughter, Mia. My wife, who is not from here, was on an Antarctic research trip at the time, or else she would have joined me for the wedding. After chatting with Ben, Mia mentioned that she wanted to play at the children's amusement park in a nearby mall. Knowing that she didn't have any playmates here, I nodded and took her along. Mia was clearly excited. She practically ran the entire way, her endless energy leaving me breathless as I struggled to keep up. Before I knew it, she bumped into someone around a corner. I hurried after her to check on her and to apologize. Sorry. Kids don't know any better. Are you hurt?" "Sam?" came a surprised and strangely familiar voice. I looked up, and after a careful glance, recognized her. It was Lily. I quickly realized that this mall was likely owned by the Liu family, so her being there wasn't unusual. But the Lily before me was different. Her posture and the way she carried herself, so unlike the vibrant, spirited woman I once knew, now appeared tired and worn out. A hint of pleasant surprise softened her features as she smiled slightly. "Long time no see. This is my daughter, Mia." We looked at each other, but this time I heard no inner voice from her. "I'd heard you got married, but I never expected your daughter to be so grown up," she continued. Before I could reply, Mia piped up. "Sorry, ma'am, I bumped into you." Lily's expression faltered for a moment. Then she reached out and gently patted Mia's head. Bending down with a smile, she spoke warmly to Mia. "It's all right, Mia. Just remember not to run so fast next time. Manager Wang, why don't you take Mia over to the children's playground over there? Sam, there's a new coffee shop on the second floor. How about catching up over some Robusta, the coffee you used to love?" I nodded and exchanged a few words with Mia. Before returning, Ben's always talkative nature had already filled me in on almost everything about Lily's current state. Ken's betrayal had hit her hard, and the Liu family had shifted their support to her cousin. Now, the once celebrated darling of the Liu clan had become a marginal figure. Love was gone, her career in ruins, and though she should be in the prime of her life, a heavy, gloomy feeling now surrounded her. "Hello, 1 cup of Robusta, 1 cup of Kang Baolan. Thank you." "No, instead please change the Robusta to a Vienna." Lily asked me with a smile. "Changed your taste? I remember you used to dislike these overly sweet coffees." I shook my head and replied, "My wife always says that Robusta has too much caffeine. It hurts the stomach if you drink too much, so she always changes it to a Vienna. Over time, I've come to enjoy the sweeter flavor. Not bad." "I saw your wedding scene. It was very romantic. Was it at that famous Swiss castle? I happened to be on a business trip at the time, so I managed to take a quick look." "The Liu family doesn't have any business in Switzerland. I didn't point that out. I simply laughed and exchanged casual pleasantries as ordinary friends. Would you mind accepting my friend request? I set my coffee cup down and, still smiling lightly, responded to Lily, "Better not. I know what you're getting at. There's no need to dwell on it. To me, that's all in the past. After all, it was clearly you who lost face back then. I did love you, but I truly don't anymore. I've built a happy family, a loving partner, an adorable daughter, and someone living an entirely new life wouldn't want to rehash the mistakes of the past, Lily, what's lost is lost. Whether it's love or hate, none of it matters anymore." My nonchalant tone seemed to sting her. A slight redness filled Lily's eyes. When I went back to look for Mia, the manager was engrossed in reading a fairy tale book to her. Until I approached, Mia looked up and asked, "Daddy, have you read The Little Prince?" Even though the fox was so wonderful, why did the little prince ultimately choose that rose? Because it was the one rose he had tenderly cared for, his one and only. Mia's gaze turned confused, and I smiled as I took her hand. When Mia's a little older, she'll understand what her father means. Beside us, Lily remained quiet. Only as we were leaving the mall did she hand Mia a brand new copy of The Little Prince. Through the car window, Lily and I exchanged a nod of farewell. At that moment, as our eyes met, I still couldn't read her inner voice. It was as if we were back at the very first time we met. The car slowly drove away, leaving the figure of an old acquaintance behind, while I held my daughter close. This was my final act of retribution, a gentle and dignified exit. From now on, memories would be our only means of meeting again, and I will replace Ken, becoming the lover in Lily's life who was always just out of reach. In Lily's world, the unattainable lover isn't a torrential downpour, but rather a lifelong, lingering dampness. She will forever be trapped in that moist existence, stirring up wild storms on every seemingly calm day. I once was a fox, and I was that red rose, but now I am merely a little prince whose journey has come to an end. My daughter, holding her phone, tugged at me. "Daddy, Mom wants to talk to you. Come on."